In the world of anime and manga, few franchises, if any, shine as brightly as Dragon Ball. But how did this tale of Saiyans, wish-granting orbs, and epic battles transcend its pages to become a global phenomenon? Well, join me as I journey back to 1984 to a small artist's desk in Japan where Akira Toriyama began sketching what would soon become a cornerstone of not just Japanese culture, but pop culture worldwide. Now, I know I said before that we had to go back to 1984, but to really understand how Dragon Ball has gotten this big, we have to go back even further, back to Akira Toriyama's first hit manga series, Dr. Slump. Now, I haven't read or watched Dr. Slump in its entirety, but I could give you a brief synopsis. The plot revolves around the inventor Senbei Norimaki and his creation, Arale. Arale's standout trait is her superhuman strength, which often gets her into silly scenarios. Like Dragon Ball, Dr. Slump is filled with eccentric characters and bizarre occurrences, but the series overall is known for its slapstick comedy and breaking the fourth wall. Now, just because Dr. Slump isn't as well known as Dragon Ball doesn't mean it wasn't a success. Dr. Slump was serialized in Weekly Shonen Jump for 4 years, and Toriyama won awards for his work as well. But after 3 years, Toriyama would shift his focus to another project. Shortly before Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama created a Kung Fu shonen manga, and this was fueled by his love for Kung Fu films at the time. This manga would be titled Dragon Boy, 2 chapters that told the story of a boy returning a princess back to her home country. Along the way, the boy allies with others and forms an unlikely team that helps him return the princess to her home. And when you look at some of the panels and other art for this story, it is clear that the early parts of Dragon Ball are heavily inspired by them. And another thing that this story has in common with Dragon Ball is a heavy influence from Journey to the West. Overall, Dragon Ball was well received, and this inspired Toriyama to further develop the story to what we now know as Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball's initial run lasted nearly 11 years, spanning from 1984 to 1995, and is one of the main reasons for Shonen Jump's success in the 20th century, and that legacy has continued on to the present. In the early parts of Dragon Ball, the story was, in my opinion, an adventure comedy, but once the martial arts tournaments were introduced, Dragon Ball was shifted to being a fighting series. One could argue that this shift is responsible for Dragon Ball's explosion in popularity, but Dragon Ball's popularity is also responsible for so many other stories getting the attention they deserve. In the 1990s, a mangaka who had a story in Weekly Shonen Jump really should have been thanking Akira Toriyama, because without Dragon Ball, there wouldn't be nearly as many people purchasing Shonen Jump. And there's proof to back what I'm saying. Here I have data for copies of Weekly Shonen Jump purchased every year from 1970 to 2005. And because the company started in 1968, it makes sense for sales to grow in the beginning. But there's a clear time period where things changed, and that's from 1985 to 1995. In those 10 years, Shonen Jump experienced their greatest sales numbers, but immediately after 1995, sales dropped dramatically and continued to do so until 2005. I wonder what happened in 1995. Oh, this happened. But even though Shonen Jump sales decreased, there are a few manga series that began soon after 1995 and would eventually reach heights that not even Dragon Ball did. Dragon Ball influenced Bleach in various ways, and one of the most notable influences is the emphasis on intense and high-stake battles. I say that for shonen, Dragon Ball popularized the concept of prolonged, epic fights with escalating levels of power, which is a trend that Bleach embraced wholeheartedly. The battles in Bleach often features characters who undergo dramatic power-ups and transformations, much like the characters in Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball also had a profound influence on Yu Yu Hakusho, with one of the most apparent influences being the emphasis on martial arts and tournament-style battles. Dragon Ball popularized the use of grand tournaments as a narrative device where characters face off against increasingly formidable opponents, and this concept was mirrored in Yu Yu Hakusho with the Dark Tournament Saga, which I believe is the best arc in the series. The intense, fast-paced battles along with the introduction of diverse and unique fighters showcase a clear homage to the Dragon Ball series. Dragon Ball inspired the structure of character growth and the theme of surpassing one's limits in Yu Yu Hakusho. But I really can't say that's for Yu Yu Hakusho alone. That's a trend that applies to many of the more popular shonen manga and anime that have been released since the 90s. With Hunter x Hunter, we can talk about how some of what happens in the Chimera Ants arc is a nod to the Cell Saga, with Adult Gon being similar in concept to Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, or how Merum's design is a homage to Cell. For My Hero Academia, Horikoshi has stated that he draws inspiration from Dragon Ball when it comes to writing grandiose all-out battles. And then there are some stories that reference Dragon Ball like Assassination Classroom, Good Luck Girl, and Gintama. But the two shonen that were heavily influenced by Dragon Ball are One Piece and Naruto. For One Piece, one of the more notable influences that I see is how Luffy is written so similar to Goku. Both characters rely heavily upon their instincts, and that's not to say that Goku and Luffy don't think, but their first course of action isn't often thought about. It is the people around them that often bring reason into the scenario and think of better ways to go about a situation. Both Goku and Luffy are also known for eating ridiculous amounts of food, making friends everywhere they go, and loving a good fight. But within the writing of these two, their greatest similarity is that they are both flat characters. A flat character can be defined as a type of character in a story who is relatively simple and does not undergo significant development or change throughout a narrative. And way too often I see and hear comments about Goku and Luffy being too predictable and lacking complexity, but I don't think that's the purpose of their characters. The beauty of Goku and Luffy as characters is how everyone else around them changes. They are so consistent in almost everything they do that the people around them are inspired to change. And last but definitely not least, Masashi Kishimoto, the creator of the Naruto series, openly admits that the character of Naruto is influenced by Goku. Both wear orange and both were perceived as low class, and both characters' ultimate attacks are blue blasts that they hold at their sides. Sasuke, the consistent opposition to the protagonist in orange, is a character who is known for wearing blue, with one of the character's defining traits being that he lost his entire family. There are obvious parallels between Jiraiya and Roshi, and as a matter of fact, there is a character in Naruto named Roshi who is a Jinchuriki for the four-tailed beast named Son Goku. Kiba and Yamcha always moving around with an animal and using dog-like attacks. I could go on and draw further parallels, but I say all of this to drive home the fact that Dragon Ball is the blueprint. The journey of Goku and his friends has not only shaped the shonen genre, but also transcended into mainstream culture. From iconic catchphrases and memorable transformations to inspiring new generations of anime and manga, Dragon Ball continues to leave its mark on fans and creators alike. Whether it's through its profound influence on other anime, its massive merchandising empire, or its presence in video games and even fashion, Dragon Ball has become more than just a series. It's a cultural phenomenon. Its legacy endures, proving that the adventures of Goku, Vegeta, and the Z-Fighters are timeless. With that being said, if you enjoyed this video, please click the like button. And if this is your first time on the channel, subscribe so you know when I upload more videos like this. But until then, this is BigTune and thanks for watching. Y'all have a good one.